What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today's topic, I want to talk. This is Senator Rand Paul, and he's talking about Social Security. He's calling it entitlements, and he's talking about just spending in general. This is a very, very short clip, but this opens up a big discussion when it comes to how and what some lawmakers want to do when it comes to Social Security and Medicare and what they call the entitlement programs. And so I'm going to play the clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. But before I do, if you guys could do me two favors, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let me go ahead. We'll play this. And like I said, this is very, very quick, and this is on Twitter here. So here we go.
Disaster, and we have to talk about all the spending, including the entitlements, or we're going to ruin the country and ruin our currency.
Okay, so, and that was the clip there. So he says we need to talk about all the spending, basically, and even entitlement. So when it comes to government spending, I agree with one thing. Congress spends way too much money. I agree with that. Our government, we spend too much money. However, when we're talking about what they call entitlements, Social Security and Medicare, that money comes from a different bank. And when we talk about our debt, our national debt at $33 trillion or $34 trillion, wherever it is right now, it's around that number, right? They're talking about the general fund. That spending, I would agree, is out of control. However, when you're talking about Social Security and Medicare, that comes from a different bank. We're talking about payroll contributions. We're talking about when you're working, you're contributing. FICA, that's what FICA is. You're contributing, and that money goes to pay out benefits that people are currently receiving. So you have 70 million people right now receiving benefits. What he is saying right now is he's saying that spending is out of control as well. And so not only the general fund, not only our national debt, that spending is out of control, but it's also out of control when we're looking at Social Security and Medicare. Now, what's the problem with that? If you're saying the spending is out of control, then that means that you want to cut those programs. So the 70 million people that are currently receiving benefits, if the spending is out of control, because understand what he's saying here. He's not talking about money that goes to the Social Security Administration budget. He's not talking about that. Although they talk about that, they've talked about that in the past, where we need to cut that spending as well. Well, that money comes from the general fund. So you have money that goes out to all the different government agencies so they can do their job, so they can, run the operation. So that money comes from the general fund. But when we're talking about Social Security and Medicare, we're talking about benefits, that money comes from FICA. That money comes from the contributions. Now, if you're going to talk about cutting that, then that means that people receiving those benefits, they're going to get reduced benefits. That's the only way that's the only thing that they're talking about here. That's the only thing they could be talking about. They can't say, well, no, we're not going to cut people's benefits. That's cutting their benefits. You would have to do that. And some lawmakers might say, and Rand Paul might be one of them, saying, we need to prolong the program because the trust funds are running out of money. Yes, the trust funds are running out of money. You have two ways to fix it. One, deep cuts into Social Security benefits. That's one way. Yes, let's just look at it this way. You cut people's benefits in half, then instead of the trust funds lasting for 10 years, the trust funds will last for 20 years. That's one way of looking at it if you want to do that. The other way of looking at it is bringing in more revenue. You hear lawmakers talking about raising the cap. People making over $400,000 will have to continue paying into FICA because they no longer pay after $168,600. So make them start having to pay, and that would bring in more revenue, and that would prolong the program out. And they're talking about that could prolong the program out 50 to 75 years. So we can look at cutting benefits in half, which would give us an extra 10 years, or we could look at bringing in more revenue by raising the cap and making people that make over $400,000 continue to contribute. Or we can just say, look, sit down with the American people. Like I said, I should be a politician because this seems like the best way to go. Sit down with the American people and say, look, we have an issue with Social Security right now. We have a trust fund. It's about $2.7 trillion that we have in the trust fund right now, but we're slowly using that money to pay off benefits. And in 10 or 11 years, we're looking at a situation where that money is going to be completely gone. And when that money is gone, now we're going to be looking at a situation where we're going to see a 23% cut across the board. And the best way for us to move forward is by raising FICA for everyone across the board. So everyone working right now, you have to pay 1% or 2% more. It's not going to be a lot, but it will make sure that we have Social Security for another 75 years. Most people would look at that and say, yes, that sounds fair. I'll contribute 1% or 2% more as long as I don't see that 23% cut in 10 years. If you can guarantee that I'm going to be able to get my Social Security benefits at 100%, that sounds good. Because looking at the alternative of just cuts of 23% if they do nothing, or having lawmakers get in there and say, oh, we're going to prolong it for another 20 years, and guess what? We're going to have to cut benefits in order to do that. And we might have to cut it in half in order to do that. So pay attention to these lawmakers. When they start talking about entitlements, we need to look at entitlement spending. What they are saying is we need to cut Social Security benefits. That is what they're saying, because there's no other way to look at it. If you're talking about we need to look at entitlement spending, and entitlement spending is going to beneficiaries, the only way you're going to look at that spending and make changes to that is by cutting it. That's the only way. Are you going to look at it and say, well, yeah, we need to look at entitlement spending because it's what, Rand Paul was saying, it's destroying the country. So we need to look at that spending. They're not going to look at the spending and say, you know what, we're not spending enough. We need to spend more on Social Security benefits. That's not what they're going to say. They're going to look at the spending and say, yeah, we need to cut it. It's not working. And understand, and I'm going to say this one more time and then I'll be done with it. When it comes to FICA, when it comes to those contributions, that money goes directly to beneficiaries. Okay, it doesn't go to pay salaries or anything like that for people working for the Social Security Administration. That's a different fund. That's the general fund. That's the budget that the Social Security Administration gets from Congress every year. It's different money. The money that they're talking about, FICA, that money goes directly to beneficiaries and only to beneficiaries. And you also have lawmakers that want to do this. They want to take this money, this FICA money, and the trust fund, so the $2.7 trillion, and if you want to just look at it the way it functions, is all of that money that comes from FICA. Every time you get a paycheck, you contribute to FICA. All that money goes to the trust fund, and then from the trust fund, that's how they pay out benefits. But the money that's coming in from FICA is not enough to pay out benefits at 100%, and so that's why they're slowly pulling a little bit from the trust funds. But just looking at the system, you have some lawmakers, they want to bring all that money into one pot. So you have the general fund here, you have the trust fund here, the two trust funds. They want to bring it all into one pot. That way they can spend it on whatever they want to spend it on. And then they can make deep cuts into Social Security because now they have access to the money. Congress doesn't have access to the money right now. So they can't make cuts unless they pass legislation to change things. But if they have the money in one big pot, then they can make cuts. And they can say, budget. We hear the budget talks every year. We're going to be hearing it more and more as we get closer to September, the end of September. That's when they need to have the budget for 2025. And it's a normal thing. We're going to be hearing about shutdowns. They do this every year. We're going to have a government shutdown because we can't come together and figure out what we're going to do with the budget and all that. Now, the budget, that's the general fund. But just think, if they brought the general fund in with Social Security, with FICA money, every year we'd be looking at government shutdown and people not getting their benefits. Every year we'd be looking at that. Right now we don't. Even if we have a government shutdown, benefits will still go out. And the reason that benefits will still go out is because that money is walled off. That money is not going to be frozen. That money will still go out. It's a necessity. It will still go out and pay benefits. So I want to know what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.